Hello, and welcome to another episode of TEAconf Talks, where we explore groundbreaking ideas shaping the future of accounting and financial technology. Today, we're going to take a deeper dive into the topic of how triple entry accounting, or T as we like to abbreviate it, can be used in the world of entertainment, specifically Hollywood. But before we start, let me remind you quickly that the second Triple Entry Accounting Conference is on April 25th to 26th, 2025 in Malta. And in advance of the conference, we're hosting this series of short talks on current topics and activities in T. So please come to TEAconf.org to get more information and purchase your tickets. Joining us today on TEAconf Talks, we're delighted to welcome movie producer and entrepreneur Ted Rivera. Ted, can you please briefly explain your background and your interest in the topic of T?
Yeah, no, I'm a former movie producer who retired in 2006 to raise my family. The economics in the movie business were such that once you have a family, you really have to make a decision. So for 20 years, I basically did, you know, real estate and just a lot of things just to provide for my family. But in 2017-18, I was introduced to blockchain technology as a solution to many problems. And upon reading IBM's Blockchain for Dummies, I had a vision for what I've built today. And in that vision, it required the implementation of the technology, not in a theoretical approach, but from an actual, can I make this happen right now? And so I sought out solutions. I learned and educated myself on what this technology can do, and I designed the system that I'll be presenting this month.
That's amazing. Amazing.
Right. Yeah.
It's so great to have you here.
Thank you.
And you're obviously providing real solutions to real problems. Maybe for those of us who are not experienced in the movie industry, you could explain how Hollywood's creative accounting system works and why it's so problematic.
Yeah, it's a different animal in that people have this other desire or want to be part of this business such they'll sign anything to be involved. And so starting with contracts and the presentation of profit distribution or revenue sharing, net deals, net clauses, and a lot of other clauses in contracts, there's a legal barrier to success in this business. And those that have the gold make the rules, and their attorneys are savvy and their systems of accounting are savvy such that, movies could make hundreds of millions of dollars, but the net participation will never kick in because of all of the other added factors that are in the nomenclature. So that's one way. The other way studios do it is through um, techniques like cross collateralization. Well, they'll make 10 movies and nine of them will flop and one of them will make money, and the money is distributed across the board, and now again diluting the lower level net participation. There's depreciation schedules and systems that are deployed. There's many ways that the corporation will continue to profit at the expense of the content creators and the contributors to the final intellectual property that is valuable. So, it's a maze. It's one of the most researched and discussed forms of accounting. From an accounting standpoint, they're interested in, and I think that's why the paper was well received by the forensic accountants who reviewed it. That it is interesting that there could be a solution to these problems.
Absolutely. It's a bleak picture and it's all about trust, right? What do you think is specific to Hollywood that makes trust break down in these financial practices?
Pure and simple, it's greed. It's a desire to profit at almost any expense. The tragedy in Hollywood is that it costs people their lives. This is not child's play, and so there's so much money on the line. And I think what a sane person wouldn't necessarily go into this business. A person who understands the potential profit that to be made, and to have the resources to exploit those artists who just have the desire to tell their stories. It's a bad equation that doesn't end well for many content creators. And so, I've just thought that honesty is the best policy. And in order to be honest, you have to verify and be transparent about the numbers. And it was never possible to really have a dependable set of numbers that could either be fraudulent or the truth, but verifiable and accountable to those who are accounting and documenting the expenditures and the revenues. So honesty is the only solution, and it doesn't exist in Hollywood. And what we're seeing now with the breakaway studios, the Mel Gibsons and the Mark Wahlbergs and Roseanne Barrs and Robert Rodriguez, they're going outside of the system, telling the people that can benefit the most, the content creators, that we're all in this together. And you're seeing this exodus of powerful people that can attract the dollars necessary to compete with Hollywood, now venturing out on their own, and using a whole different system of investment in order to make their projects tell their stories and maintain the ownership of their intellectual property.
Amazing insider view there, really fascinating. So could you explain, how does triple entry accounting address these fraud and transparency issues and bring honesty to the process?
It puts the declaring person, I'm honest, I want to share all information. It gives you a methodology and a technology to verify this information. So I've always said you're only as honest as the person inputting the data. But at least with blockchain and triple entry accounting, we have a trail of data that cannot be changed after the fact. So an honest actor can take that information into the courtroom and say, I did the best I could. Here's all the data. Or they can take that data into the courtroom from the other side and say, this is all fraudulent, and we can prove that these entries are not correct, and they've not have necessarily been changed. They've been forged from the beginning, and here is the data. So it's a double-edged sword, which is why the paper's called Ostrom's razor. And you have to understand that people may intend to be honest in the beginning, but once money starts coming in, the greed and the deception, it builds, and it's fostered and even applauded in some circles.
It's amazing to hear about triple entry accounting as an antidote to this. So in very practical terms, what practical steps would filmmakers need to do to adopt this blockchain-based system?
They would have to, like I have, become technologically educated to understand what's possible, and then determine which technology they choose. And then once they choose a technology, and when I say technology, I'm talking about protocols and blockchains, prices, uh, prices for transactions, um, proof of work versus proof of stake. They can navigate this same world that I have and come to a system to document, and then have developers build simple systems with wallets and with file sharing and in these other Web 2 technologies that are now facilitated on the blockchain for a documentation. And so that gets into, do I really want to be accountable to the data, or do I want to use a system that can be manipulated? And so it's a touchy subject. It's a political situation as well. But what we've seen time and time again is that content creators just want a way to get the money from the user into their wallet. And so they're making movies. They're using blockchain, but I don't think anybody is doing what I'm doing by saying these are the books. This is the state of my accounting system at this moment. It has changed. Now this is the new state of my accounting system from a declarative standpoint, and over time developing a system that is totally transparent, but only as honest as I am.
Perfect. We'll move to talk in more detail about tools in a minute. But first of all, back to the human side. It's often said that blockchain is a team sport. How would, for example, forming a collective of filmmakers using blockchain foster that trust and fairness?
I think in the movies without blockchain, it's about trust. I'll only crew up and I will only hire people and work with people that I already know I can trust. Those people are hoping that the deals that I put in place fall through. And so they want to trust their giving of their time and energy for the expectation. And I think if you can just solidify that trust with a transparent system, now anything's possible, because not only can they trust you, other people who do not know you can now trust you because you've proven that you're open and transparent, and then the receipts prove that you're true to the documentation. And so does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Thank you. Great answer. And I'm just curious, could you provide a real world scenario where perhaps the use of this technology could have prevented a dispute in Hollywood?
Many examples. David Boreanaz from Bones had a net profit participation deal in place. In that deal, he had an audit clause. But an audit is expensive, especially when there's corporations, lawyers, accountants, layers, etc. But David, his partners, were able to finance the legal team and the forensic accounting team, and they discovered they were owed $187 million. And it's a real world example, but filmmakers don't have these resources. The millions of filmmakers and the thousands of filmmakers do not have the ability to take on the system. So many of us never know. And when we make films and we sell them to foreign distributors, and we don't take an advance, and we're supposed to get 40% of the net, and never see a dime, and that just happens every day, all day.
Wow, that's a kind of quite horrifying example, and you say it's one of many. So yeah.
A lot of people just do this to say they do it.
Yep. So moving on, or moving back, I should say, to the specific tools that one might use. We've talked in the past, and some names that have come up are tools like BSV Blockchain, Magic DApp, and Teatro. Could you explain how things like this, what they are, first of all, and how they enhance transparency and accountability?
My background is an international economist in economics and costs and revenues and things like that. Once I understood the potential for this technology, it was paramount to me that I would find a system that was both cost effective and dependable. And I wasn't going to build. I went right past Ethereum, right past Solana, right? I went past all of these immediately because economically they didn't make sense. And then here was a system designed by some people following the vision of one person to simplify this process and make it more in line with what the white paper for Bitcoin reads, to work in an economic way that billionaires and millionaires can do what I'm doing on BTC. But kids in London and China and Korea and Africa that want to do this can't afford those systems. Can't they're too complicated, they're too expensive. So it was important to me to choose a system that they could use. And for me, the third, fourth iteration of Bitcoin BSV, which claims to be the intended version, was the best working system. Why would I be a fool and spend the money for the transactions to show the world this works on BTC when it's coming out of my pocket? I would use a similar system that worked just as good, if not better, that was affordable. And that's why I chose that technology. Other people have chosen this technology, and Zach and his team at Magic Dap created a system of inserting information into the blockchain. We worked together to slightly modify that brilliant system to now be able to accept my accounting records, distribute them around the chain through all the mining network, and with one link, my investors can go and see the state. It would bring the accounting records from the noise back into their form, and they can be evaluated by the parties that have the vested interest. And so you start combining these technologies, building a player that works, storing videos on the Web 2 system, but running them through a Web 3 payment system, and that's what Teatro is. And when it comes together, that you have a blockchain you can depend on and afford. You have a technology that allows you to provide a transparent and immutable record of events from the perspective of the recorder, and then now have a means to equally or evenly or according to contractual obligation distribute funds instantaneously at the point of sale. No longer is there a custodial nature to money. No longer is there, it's going to take days to weeks to months because the interest is valuable. No longer is there, hey, we didn't get your money. We don't have your money yet. There's a transparent record of the stream of the content, and people can verify there's my wallet, there's 20 other wallets. I can do the math and see that the percentage that I was guaranteed is delivered. And so you can create a throughput, you can create a system, a very rudimentary and basic system that can work for everybody. Now, through investment and through growth and things that venture capital does for ideas like mine, millions of people around the world could use this system very simply. So, and it's not just Magic Dap. Also, it's Sign on Chain from Unisat that provides me contracts that I can facilitate contracts and maintain records and have them distributed over the blockchain and to where there's now documentation that shows a timestamp of when the activity happened. It's verifiable through time. So what I'm doing as a producer is either setting myself up to succeed because I'm honest, or giving everybody the information to put me in jail if I'm not.
Cool. That explanation of the tools was great, and a really good illustration of how you place different tools and products together to create a system for trust.
And Rhian, and that
Yes.
wasn't even the original vision. The original vision is my movies. All this stuff just facilitates a filmmaker's desire to monetize their content before it's even produced. And
Yeah.
that's where the real value is. Where if a person in Cameroon can make $100 a day with 10,000 users engaging with them on a daily basis, that's survival.
Yeah. Really inspiring. Thank you. If you're not you know, if you're not a producer in Cameroon and you're perhaps one of these very established players, what do you think are the biggest challenges in getting, you know, the existing people within the system in Hollywood to adopt this model?
Just as of last week, Steven Soderbergh has a movie right now where he's saying he's using blockchain technology. And
Wow.
when a pioneer in independent filmmaking like Soderbergh is looking at this technology, that's how it starts. Now, what technology is he looking at? How does it really work? How dependable is it really? Now, as people start to understand what this is about, they'll soon realize that only a form of Bitcoin can be dependable.
Amazing. Thank you. Really, really great explanation. Final question. You presented at the first Tea conference, of course. Could you tell me why you decided to speak there and how you found the experience?
It was self-serving. It was planting my flag in the mountain that is this technology and the advancement of this technology. The Tea conference was just the logical step to not only talk about or write about what I'm doing, but to have my system peer reviewed by forensic accountants and securities analysts who see the value of a future stock market that can be as dependable as the movie stocks that I'm dealing with. It's a very safe space to develop concepts for the real world and the whole world.
Thank you so much, Ted, for joining us and for such an insightful discussion. It's amazing to see how tea and blockchain technology have the capacity to transform the world of movie making, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
To all our listeners, don't forget that the second Triple Entry Accounting Conference is happening on April the 25th to 26th, 2025 in Malta. As I said, visit TEAconf.org for tickets and details. Thanks so much for tuning into TEAconf Talks, and be sure to join us in the next episode when we'll have more great topics to discuss. See you then.